It's time for another Comic Book Wednesday. Today we will be talking about Convergence, Batman Shadow of the Bat, and Loki, Agent of Asgard, number 13. First up, Batman Shadow of the Bat. For those of you who don't know, Convergence is a big crossover event with DC. All these different multiverses are going to be made to fight each other. Literally, Brainiac has gotten bottles of cities from different multiverses, and he's going to make them fight. And this one covers Batman. Now, in this universe, Batman is Bruce Wayne, but there's also Azrael, and they're both in Metropolis. And in this story, Bruce Wayne has gone undercover as Bruce Wayne the mobster. He's saying that his family's connections, their money, it all comes from crime, which is an interesting take on the character. It reminds me of the Green Hornet. That was the whole premise with the Green Hornet. The main enemy is Tobias Whale, who's an obscure Batman character. I didn't even know about him, to be frank. That shows how much I know about Batman. What they're doing is they're trying to control the food supply for the city. Now, if you think about this, each city is bottled up, so they have a limited amount of food. I'm not sure if Brainiac's feeding them or if he's just letting them eat off their own supplies of food, but Tobias is trying to control the food supply. They say that they're eating like algae bricks or something. Of course, I'm not sure what you would, he's trying to sell the food at a higher cost. But I'm not sure what you would buy in this kind of situation. I think maybe they didn't really go into it. This kind of evil for evil's sake almost, but maybe he's just scared, terrified, and just doing what he knows how to do, which is an interesting idea. They didn't go into it in this. To be honest, I found it a little bit difficult to get through. It was like walking in mud because of Azrael, because of the 90s, because of Azrael and Batman going back and forth on what's the appropriate use of force. It seemed like a commentary on the 90s rather than an actual adventure. The art is good. The art is DC quality. I mean, that's enough. That explains it. And it ends with the reader being shown that there were two guys from another bottle who somehow were able to get out of their bottle, a man and a woman, and they were spying on this Batman and Azrael pair. And I thought that was kind of clever. And they're kind of like, well, these guys are going to be the big competition. So overall, a good book if you're into Convergence, if you're into Batman, if you don't mind Azrael. If you don't have two out of those three, I mean, everyone's in the Batman who's in the comics. So really, if you're not interested in Convergence or Azrael, don't pick it up. If you're interested in Convergence and you like Azrael, then definitely pick it up. It's definitely going to be for you. The next thing we have is Loki, Agent of Asgard, number 13. And this is a very interesting book. It made me think a lot about the mythology of Loki, about his relationship to his father, about Odin's relationship to his brother, and what that could mean for the future of Asgard. Okay, so what's happening in this is that old Loki from the future, who's evil. Now, for those of you who don't know, Loki, Agent of Asgard, it's about a young Loki that has been brought back to life by, or I think released from the prisons by the All-Mothers. Let's see if I can get this right. Freya, Gaia, and Idun. And now Odin's back. And he's not that evil in this one. He's the god of lies, I think they were trying to say, rather than the god of mischief. In this one, he goes further to say that he's the god of stories, which is an interesting take on it. It's much more morally neutral than god of lies or god of of mischief. It's god of stories, and that's what an interesting idea is. And that idea actually comes from Odin, or at least a vision of Odin. Maybe a memory, maybe a hallucination. Old Loki has trapped young Loki, the current Loki, in his mind, in current Loki's own mind. What he's done is he's trying to burn him away so that old evil Loki can come back and inhabit this body. Now, what they've done to show the levels of evil, I think, is a very clever thing. The length of the horns of Loki, and these are goat horns. In traditional Christian dialogue, goats are willful and independent, and thus represent evil. This Loki has very short horns, look like they're about 6 inches. Evil Loki has tremendous horns, like in the Avengers movie. And we also see that the original Loki has kind of very long horns, but not quite as long as King Loki. Then we have Kid Loki, who has no horns. He actually has wings, which is kind of cute, you know. It's saying that he's still an innocent, really. But what he does is, first of all, he speaks to his girlfriend, Willis, who's somehow able to not be lied to, which is an interesting love interest for Loki. A girlfriend that Loki can't lie to. That's be hard to pull off. I think I would have gone the lazy route and just had him with Enchantress, or maybe Lorelei, maybe even Carnilla, maybe Sif. You know, that they could have a grudging respect for each other. But instead, they made this new character who I like. I like this character. She's different. She's interesting, and she's a juxtaposition for Loki without being a negation of Loki, without really negating who he is, and without being an enemy of Loki, which is interesting. In Loki's subconscious, there's these two Odins, which of course represent Odin, two ravens, which represent Odin. Anyway, Loki finishes the story by exploding himself. Young Loki does, and this sends off a time ripple, which pushes King Loki. They haven't explained what King Loki is the king of yet, which I'm curious to know, as I imagine it's somehow connected with King Thor. But let me go back to what I was, and what happens is it gets pushed forward to Convergence, so there's another Earth in the sky, as well as the moon. And finally, the final thing is that there's this, 3,000 years ago, there's this Skald, who's a Nordic wise man, who somehow has some kind of binding magic, and this is going to come into play later. I'm interested to know what's going on with that. It should be very interesting. Now back to Odin and Loki. As far as I know, we've never gotten a good explanation of why Odin brought him in. In the Avengers, or in the Thor movie, they said some stuff about building a rift between the two races. But what I think of, which I think is very interesting, is that Odin and his brother Cole have had a lot of trouble, with Cole trying to try to rule humanity, and Odin slaughtering all the humans and then locking his brother away. A very difficult relationship. And I'm wondering if Odin picked out Loki to be Thor's brother to simulate his relationship with Cole, to prove that an evil brother, that brotherly love could overcome evil, and his brother could be redeemed. That's a very interesting idea. It reminds me of The Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight, where Bruce Wayne pays all this money to have Two-Face rehabilitated because he wants to see if you can come back from insanity. He wants to know that redemption, not just redemption, but healing is possible. And it's not clear if he wants to know for himself or for the Joker. I think for himself is what he means. That he can get over all this trauma. But wouldn't that be interesting that Odin did that to see if he could have a chance at a good brotherly relationship with Cole, who is, if you don't remember, the god of fear, who ends up killing Thor and, attacking Earth. Now he's back in Thor number 7. I think a little bit before that, actually. That also makes me think, what if you had a time traveling Magni? Magni is Thor's future son. He's the god of strength. So in an alternate timeline, they had Thor had a son named Magni, who was the god of strength, and his mother was the enchantress. So what if in a future timeline, let's say the King Thor timeline, where Thor's sons are dead, let's say before that, so we have kind of younger King Thor. Thor has 2 sons, let's say one from Enchantress, one from Sif. The one from Sif is the good one, Magni, and the one from Enchantress might be the god of serpents. Something sneaky like that. And that could be repeating, kind of like how the Greek myths have father against son. The Marvel equivalent of the Nordic myths could be brother against brother. This could be a repeating theme that goes on, and I think that's pretty clever. I like that. This is a good pickup. If you like Loki, if you like Thor, if you like Angela, isn't that interesting now that they've had all these spin-offs, which are actually doing okay? I think that's interesting because they've never had good success with Thor spin-offs. Thor just didn't have that critical mass of fanhood away from the Avengers to just take up supporting characters and putting them in their own book. But he's doing well now. Really shows you what a movie can do for a character. Alright guys, I'll talk to you later. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check out my other projects. Thank you.